up. So we have Dr. Nautyal and then Kanika and then the research scholars discussion and interaction. So to set the stage, I would proceed for the session 3, and in this session, Dr. Nautyal would be presenting and giving a theme overview. Just a brief introduction about Dr. Nautyal. He studied physics from IIT Roorkee and then obtained his PhD from PRL Ahmedabad. And his research interest revolves around Earth, planetary science, paleoclimatology, archaeology, and he superannuated as scientist in charge in the radiocarbon lab at BSIP. He's recipient of many recognitions like INSA Medal for Young Scientists. His work has been recognized by Paleobotanical Society, Lucknow. He has been a member of National Committee for Archaeological Sciences, and he has also been a very prolific science communicator and science educator. He also works with DSTs and CSIR Science Communication Wing. He is now program consultant for science communication to INSA, and he serves as secretary for UP Academy of Sciences. So I would now like to request Dr. Nautyal to present the theme.
Thank you, Dr. Niti, for the kind introduction. The chairman, Professor Shah, Dr. Saman, Dr. Madhu Dikshit, other distinguished speakers. I think they outnumber the audience and the distinguished audience. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you. So it's really, I think until they switch it on, my time will not start, okay? So I have 10 minutes to talk to you, and it's really a challenge. It's, sorry for intruding on your siesta time. It's a big challenge to keep the audience awake after the lecture, in a lecture, which is immediately after lunch during the summer season. So we'll be talking to you, we all will be talking about the scientific temper and this International Year for Basic Sciences for the Sustainable Development Goals. Professor D.S. Kothari, the former president of Indian National Science Academy, once wrote, "The power of science to transform society is immense, perhaps more than any other activity, and science will suffer grievously and in the end reduced to mockery if all its power is not yoked to alleviate human suffering." I think this is something which International Year for Basic Sciences for Sustainable Development also aims at. There is another interesting quote from Isaac Asimov, who said, "A public that doesn't understand how science works can too easily fall prey to those ignoramuses who make fun of what they don't understand, or to the sloganeers who proclaim scientists to be the mercenary warriors of today and the tools of the military. The difference between understanding and not understanding is also the difference between respect and admiration on one side and hate and fear on the other." So science has to work for the society, even though that cannot be the only aim of the doing science. And we have to reach the ultimate person, the poorest person in the society. And if we can reach that person and the benefits can accrue to him or her, I think then the science has succeeded. But then why should public know about science and technology? Several reasons can be given. It may influence their life. It's important for society's health because it's not just the physical health which is important, it's also the mental health of the society, which is very important, and we want the attitude of the people to be scientific. Scientists deserve recognition. They should also serve as role models apart from cricketers and film stars and dancers. We should also distinguish science from technology. And we want today to emphasize the point that basic sciences are very important. And as most of the speakers said since this morning, that basic science is really important, and technology or applied science cannot progress without the basic science. Scientific attitude is one thing. go like this. We have seen in the media many issues which have been discussed during the past 30 years or so, and they have been about, about plague, about the total solar eclipses, alignment of planets, Mohonochua menace, the face scratcher, earthquake, landslide, tsunami, hurricane, the Gyan rail several years, and also that statues drinking milk and the plague, the total solar eclipses, alignment of planets and all. That is the computer capture. Okay. And there are many such topics which the media has been discussing during the last 30 years. So there have been occasions when media has been talking about science. There have been occasions when media has been talking about applications of science for the betterment of people. But still, I don't think that is enough. And I feel that the scientists should take up this responsibility of communicating science to the people. Until that happens, we will have to leave it to the people who don't understand and appreciate science. I'm not saying that every science communicator has to be a scientist, but more and more scientists should come forward and talk science to people because they are the ones who understand it completely. It's very difficult for somebody with a degree in history or Hindi literature to understand science and communicate to people. We see in newspapers every year, and I have been seeing it for since 2005. Every year around the month of August, you see that the Mars is coming close to the Earth, and tonight it will appear bigger than Moon. And this has been appearing and reappearing, and there is no effort made by people seriously to explain to people that this cannot happen because of the relative sizes of the two, Moon and Mars. Mars is bigger, true, but the distance is so much larger that the apparent size of Mars can never be close to Moon. But this keeps happening. But then we don't present science to the people in an interesting manner. We don't make it so interesting. And the result is that people don't get attracted to that. But this is one example. Almost more than 15 years ago, there was a science train which was moving all across the country. And you see the response of the people. This is the crowd gathered there to go and watch the exhibits in the train. It was a moving train, therefore it was a moving exhibition. Same thing can be done with boats, with ships, with abandoned aeroplanes, and so on. So what is the responsibility of the scientific community is to make sure that science is presented and presented in an interesting way. But then we also get an impression that when we talk of science, we will be hurting the sentiments of the people because many people think that science is against our ancient values. I don't think that is true. Many of the faiths, many of the practices in our religion or in our society are actually very environment friendly. When people used to say that pehle Panchvati mein Ram milenge, pehle ped lagao 5, they did not mean really in the religious sense, but we know that plantation of trees is very important for saving this earth. And as an aside, I may tell you that this talk of saving the earth is not really a very wise thing, as Paul Coelho has said. He said, "You stupid, you are talking about saving the earth. You worry about yourself. Earth has been there for 4.5 billion years. It will continue to be there for another billions of years. It's we who have to worry about ourselves." Now, scientific thinking or temper implies going by evidence. And this is what every scientist stands by. But then at the same time, every experiment has not been done. Every idea present in the books has not been tested. So we don't discard everything which has not been discarded, which has not been established or proved by science. We keep them in a section which is neither proved nor disproved. So I think we should take this scientific approach. Otherwise, not believing something without disproving it is also wrong. And it's as much wrong as believing something which has not been established. So we also go by the accumulated wisdom and others' experience like potassium cyanide. I have never tasted it, but I will never, I know. Logic and sentiments, both are very important when we come to the communicating to people. The Jagran, I had published an article. So many traditions are scientific, just that we don't understand the science behind them. And during this period of Corona or COVID-19, we have understood the meaning of quarantine. And this was a practice which was rampant in the society. And if anybody died, and most of the time it used to be because of infectious diseases. So people used to be kept in quarantine for 13 days or so, and this is what science also today advises. So we don't have to discard everything which is old. And now the problem comes is when in between people started putting too much emphasis on the applied science or so-called applied science. But what is applied science without the basic sciences? I'm not saying that every time technology emanates out of science. It does not happen. We started using fire before we knew about plasma physics. We started using wheel before we knew the relationship between circumference of a circle and radius of the circle. So very often technology came before science, but when it comes to the application of the technology, it's a basic science, which is something which must be understood before that. Another problem was, underlying philosophy was that when people started talking about sustainable development, people said that we are blind after technology, we are blindly going after it, and we are ignoring the basic science, and too much technology has meant too much of wastage, which is harmful to this Mother Earth. Now, underlying philosophy was that industries will survive only if the natural resources are available, and similarly for the agriculture. But should this be the only reason why we should care about nature? Why we should care about sustainability? In the year 1987, the World Commission on Environment and Development published its report by the name Our Common Future. By the time Rio de Janeiro meet happened in '92, the term sustainability and sustainable development were quite popular. They were quite well known to the people. Agenda 2030 in the year 2015, which was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly, it was an integrated vision for the sustainable development of all the world's population. But then some people had a very serious problem. They said that anthropocentric view, that means keeping humankind in the center before thinking anything about this globe or this nature or for the animals or for the birds or the plants, is it really necessary? We always think in terms of a world which is centered around the human being. This is not a very good approach. So people have started now talking about this International Year for Basic Sciences for Sustainable Development Goals or for Sustainable Development. And the themes, as Professor Shah mentioned in the morning, was strengthening the presence and visibility of women. Well, we see it. Professor Shah is a lady, and Dr. Saman, the convener of the symposium, is a lady too. Basic Sciences and Resources of International Dialogue and Peace. We will hear a lecture about it from Dr. Gupta next lecture. Science as a global public good. Innovation and economic development, education and human development, and meeting global challenges. And this, the whole humanity has to do together. These are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which were also mentioned by Professor Shah in the morning. Now, these 17 goals are fine. Using technology is fine. Applying science for the development of technology is also fine. But when they go to a large scale, if we don't understand the basic science, we will not be successful. We have known it during the past 2 years. If we did not understand the basic science behind the virus, behind the disease caused by virus, the immunity mechanism of the body, we wouldn't have been successful in devising the vaccines or even think of medicines for the viral diseases. So basic sciences are important because they are the essential tools to ensure dialogues across cultures, also for political stability and peace, and they're essential to the implementation of these sustainable development goals, and they're also provided by basic sciences. The training, skill, and know-how necessary for adapting to the technology, using them most effectively, also needs basic science. The operational models and practical ways of networking developed by the basic science community will contribute to ensuring the effective implementation of the sustainable development goals. Now, where do communicators come in the picture? Communicators come in the picture because they can change the thinking of the society. This is my experience from 2007 when there was a scare because of the so-called face scratcher or Muh Nochwa. In places like Sitapur, Barabanki, Banaras, there was total chaos. Law and order system was totally disrupted because people not coming out of their houses after 6 in the evening because they thought there is a face scratcher which would damage them. We went there, and within a few hours' time, we could convince people as communicators by sheer logic that this is an impossibility what they're talking about, And from the next day, I learned from the SDM and later from the SP and the commissioner that problem in Sitapur was completely solved. So this is where we talk to them just about the basic science. That so much energy cannot be available with something like a monochwa, which is not a material body. It cannot contain so much energy to give a very high shock to human beings. There was a news in a national newspaper that dolphins are going blind. And the reason cited was that effluents from the Narora nuclear power reactor. They said the dolphins are going blind. As you know, that there are hardly 1,200 dolphins left in the world. So as far as environmentalists were concerned, this was a very serious issue. But then do you know what I found? I looked around in the literature, talked to the people, and I found out that dolphins were blind, indeed, but they were not going blind because they were born blind. Dolphins are born blind, and it had nothing to do with the nuclear power reactor in the Narora. So this kind of things can only be tackled with some very, very basic science. You remember in 1995, this was the first time total solar eclipse, which was broadcasted or telecast by our Doordarshan. At that time, there used to be only one channel. I had an opportunity to give live commentary on that. And this gentleman you see in the center, can you recognize him? Professor J.V. Narlikar, Padma Vibhushan Professor J.V. Narlikar, one of the most famous Indian astrophysicists. He was a gold medalist from Cambridge. He was also there. Professor Rashpal was in Delhi. And why I'm mentioning this thing is because we are talking about the basic sciences and sustainable goals. If we convince people why we have to achieve sustainable goals, they will follow the doctrine given by us, otherwise they will not. You have to convince them. Just on the previous night, we had 600 children coming from the nearby villages of Ghurpur and Iradatganj, who listened to our lectures, interacted with us, saw our slideshow, and they were convinced that there is no harm in watching the total solar eclipse. This was for the first time in the history of India, perhaps in the last centuries, where people were not afraid of looking at the total solar eclipse. And after that, there have been many such occasions. I myself gave a live commentary on several of them. Total lunar eclipse, total solar eclipse, partial solar eclipse, the Venus transit, all these I have commented upon. And people were there in hopes, in huge number, to watch it without any fear. Another example, we were successful in convincing people about the power of wearing masks, the power of washing hands with soap solution, because those people who understood a little bit of science, we could tell them that if this is a soap solution, this will be joining the membrane, which is a lipid membrane over the protein shell of the virus. It will be joining water to that. The soap molecule will do that. And therefore, when you wash your hands in running water, this will be washed off and you will get rid of the virus. We could show them the results of the experiments that if you are wearing mask, the reach of the virus becomes very short. The air or the wind which comes out of the mouth would go otherwise to 4 meters, but when you are wearing a mask, this reduces to 2 feet or 3, and therefore the person who is at a distance of 4 feet is safe. If you convince people with the power of logic, but then let us not overestimate the power of logic. We all know we never say, I love you with this sign of the real diagram of heart. We always send a heart like that. So whenever we communicate to people, whenever we send any message, it has to target the mind and the heart both. And I think this is where the success of a good communicator will lie. So I think I can just end with this one remark that India is a very unique country. We have people here of different temperaments, different cultural practices, different religions, different languages. We are a place where you take a satellite on a bullock cart. We have sometimes right in the middle of the train track, so we are a very different kind of people. So we have to have very ingenious approach to talk to people. And I think then we'll be able to tell them why basic science is important, why they should follow the advice given by the scientists and environmentalists if we want to save ourselves, not this world. The world will be there. The earth will always be there. And we will, I think now we are ready for the next lecture by Mrs. Gupta, who talk about peace and the global affairs. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr.
India or
Nautiyal,
Bangladesh?
for setting up the stage. And you have rightly pointed out that scientific temper is very important. It's the basic block of any civilization, any society. And we as a scientist have to play an important role in science communication. And there is another aspect that that the next speaker is also going to talk about scientific temper and how the journalist or media people can reach to grassroots society and connect the scientist with the common man. So we have Kanika. She's independent journalist from New Delhi, but she primarily works from out of Kashmir and Kabul. Her reporting niche includes human rights, child rights, women rights, humanitarian issues, and culture stories from conflict zones. So you would have mainly seen male journalists covering conflict zones, and today you are going to meet a person, a female, who works in conflict zones and tries to bring out hard-hitting stories from the ground to us. So Kanika did her initial education in BA English Honors and then followed by Masters in Journalism and Mass Communication. And she would be telling some of her stories and how from her experience she would like to connect the scientific temper in meeting the SDGs. Over to you, Kanika.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kanika Gupta, and I really appreciate a very kind introduction. I have been working as a journalist for the last about 3 years and straight up deep dived into conflict zones because I have personally always believed that a lot of misinformation stems from these regions because a lot of media is not able to access these areas due to conflict, due to insecurity, due to continued fighting. There could be a number of reasons to not being able to access the regions. And that is where that's where most of the misinformation happens. And I think this is where a scientific temper as a concept plays a huge role in trying to establish facts and trying to establish logic, trying to establish honest admission and honest views of what's happening on the ground. So in this presentation, essentially, I am not going to talk about scientific temper because everyone before me has already covered it pretty much. My objective here is to share some stories from the ground and then eventually tie it down to what scientific temper eventually does and how it could be the basis for peace and sustainable goals. So moving forward. So as per my understanding, to be very honest, and in my honest admission, I would say that I wasn't even aware of what scientific temper means until I had a word with Neeti, and she wanted me to come here and bring my views of working in the field as a journalist and talk about scientific temper and see how I can draw a parallel between the two. That's when I went online and did a bit of research, and I found that there is a huge, similarity between how scientific temper happens, what scientific temper means, and how journalism happens on the ground. We attitude of mind which encourages change in outlook and behavioral patterns. So as a journalist, my objective is not here to change the way you think, but my job here is to present facts to you so that you can evaluate them objectively and make your own decisions along the way. It promotes rational thinking, stimulates objectivity and rationality. Once you have once you have incorporated scientific temper into your lives, into your daily lives, you would be able to keep an open mind about things and will view things more objectively, which I will show in subsequent slides why that is important. I mean, to have an open mind about scenarios, about things, about facts, about all the events that are happening around you, because it allows you to open your mind to possibilities and to see things from a clear lens rather than, keeping a blurred vision that has been distorted because of your absence of knowledge or absence of rationality. Helps in creating an environment of equality, secularism, democratic, and universal society. This point is especially important because in the next slides, I will be talking about Afghanistan majorly because that's where I worked in the last 1 year of approximately. And I have seen how lack of rational thinking and lack of scientific temper, what it can do to societies, and how as Indians, because it is our constitutional duty that we must at any point and every point incorporate scientific temper and its tenets into our day-to-day lives. Establishing scientific temper at the grassroots levels of society. So I think this is my job as a journalist to take the concepts of scientific temper to the grassroots level of society and bring the change ground up, because a lot of times we as people have access to technology, we are able to see news, we're able to read newspapers, but a lot of people in the rural parts of the country, be it India or anywhere in the world, they don't have access to these technologies, and they may often not hear the true version of what has actually happened. They may hear, it may be a hearsay, or they may hear distorted, misinformed versions of it, and they may make a completely different or false perception of things. So going forward, I'm going to be sharing a couple of stories. They are my experiences, my photos, my case studies for the stories that I did for a lot of publications. And I will, sorry, oops, what I did. I'm going to circle back to this one, so we'll straight up jump to the stories. So this is a child, his name is Nuruddin. He is 12 years old. He is from the southern part of Afghanistan in Kandahar. So I met him when I was doing a story about opium. As I don't know how many of you are aware, but opium, Afghanistan produces world's 90% opium, and it has been for 20 years the source of their income, meaning the Taliban's income, in fueling the insurgents in the country. Nuruddin is also a Talib's son. Now their parents are in, now his father is also a part of the government. And even though formally opium has been banned in Afghanistan, but the cultivation and harvesting is still happening. The sale of it is still happening. And Nuruddin at 12 started working as a farmer at the age of 6. And for 6 years, his formative years, he has been working in the opium field. And when I asked him that, why are you in the fields and why are you not in the school? His father said that for you, education, aapko Islami nizam chahiye, aapko Islami taaleem chahiye. You should be educated in Islam and not in studies, in school, in the basic general education. And he pulled him out of school and put him here in the fields. And he works for 12 hours in slaving in the fields. And I asked him, what do you want to be in the future? If your father allowed you to study, what would you have become? He said, I want to become a teacher because teachers are wise. And I don't know anything. I don't know any games. I don't play. I don't have time to play because I'm always working in the fields, or I'm helping my parents in the house. So this was Nuruddin, 12 years old, from Kandahar. This is Bibi Zarmina. Bibi Zarmina was also from Kandahar, and she is displaced along with her 3 children, living in Kandahar city, along with because she lost her husband to the fight due to conflict, and she had been displaced from her home due to ongoing conflict between Taliban and Afghan National Forces. This photograph I took right before Kandahar city had fallen to the Taliban, and these people were living in abject fear, in hunger, in poverty. And now that Taliban has formed a government in their country, I don't know, Bibi Zarmina would not be allowed to work. Bibi Zarmina would not be allowed to go out. Bibi Zarmina would not be allowed to access healthcare because women are not allowed to go without a man. She doesn't have a husband. She cannot marry. So I don't know what's becoming of her life right now. And when I met her at this time, she said, we ran from our house. My husband was killed in an explosion. And we just ran with 3 clothes on our back. And I have nothing but my children and a mat on which she's sitting right now. I forgot his name, but I met him at a drug addiction, de-addiction center, Avicenna Hospital, one of the primary or leading drug de-addiction centers in Kabul. This man has been jobless for many years because of ongoing conflict. The economic situation of the country is in shambles. The country now, with the Taliban in power, the world has essentially cut all funding, and Afghanistan's economy was 70% funded by international aid. And now with the international aid gone, a lot of these people are jobless. There is no money in the country. People don't have food to eat. But being the 90% producer of opium, they naturally have access to a lot of substance, a lot of intoxicating substance, which they have easy access to, and it is very cheap. Needless to say, these people are dealing with addiction, and he is a heroin addict. And he got into addiction because he didn't have job, he didn't have money, and he has a family. He has 12 people living in his house. And he said they constantly asked me for food, and I didn't know how to provide them food. So I created an alternate reality where I was always intoxicated, and I did not have to deal with these real world problems of food, of job, of providing education to. He's currently in Avicenna going through de-addiction treatment. And so he's basically lifting up his shirt here and showing me that I haven't had proper food in days. And look at my rib cage, even my bones are sticking out. So this was at the de-addiction center. This guy is Nurullah, and I met him in Sangin. It's a district in Helmand, also South Afghanistan. And so southern Afghanistan is basically at the heart of Taliban movement. So this village, every person in this village, Sangin district, the district's name is Sangin, every person in this village basically was either a Talib directly or was supporting the fight with them. So this person is 20 years old. He had already lost his father and his brother to the fight. The American army had killed his father, and Afghan National Army had killed his brother. So in retaliation, he joined the insurgency. And here he's showing a bullet. Shrapnel. He was hit by a shrapnel when there was when Afghan National Army attacked their district, and he was fighting on the front line for the Taliban. And they are jobless. They don't have any food to eat. Their house was covered in flies. When I went to their house, the house was covered in flies. The children hadn't eaten in days. The mother was crying. She said, I have already lost 2 sons and a husband. I cannot lose another son. And then I asked them, I said, but you support the Taliban. Why? I mean, if you know what is the situation with the country, why do you support them? Why do you fight for them, fight with them? Then she said that we don't care about money. We don't care about food. For us, it is we are fighting for God, and that is the fight that we want to fight. And I don't care if we don't have food to eat. And within the next 5 minutes, she asked me to donate her money so that she can buy some food for her family. This man is 20 years old, and he doesn't have any other job. He's just basically sitting idle at home, and he believes that he did the right thing when he fought from the other side. This man is also from Helmand. What he's holding in his hand here is an improvised explosive device, also known as a landmine. He fought also for the Taliban when the war was raging. This was in Helmand district of Afghanistan, Helmand province of Afghanistan. And I asked him, I said, why are you fighting from the side of Taliban? And he said, why aren't you a soldier, and why are you making landmines? This is destructive. And he said, our leaders told us that this is holier than being a soldier if you are making landmines. So I decided to do this because if I die because of this, then I will straight away go to heaven. So I want to be contributing in a much holier way. So I'm making landmines. So I asked him, okay, how much destruction can this landmine cause? And he was very proud when he told me that if it's perfectly made, it can blow up a police ranger very easily. This man, he's 17. He's a boy, actually. He's 17, and he said he can make about 50 landmines in 10 minutes. This is Arzu. She is a 10-year-old girl, and this was my story about the girls' education and the ban that was imposed by the Taliban recently on education on senior girls. She is in grade 6 right now. Next year, she would be moving to grade 7, beyond which the schools have been closed for girls. And she fears, she worries for her future. And I asked her, what do you want to be when you grow up? She says, I want to become a journalist. I want to face the world. I want to put my country onto the global map. And I asked her, but don't you worry that that the Taliban has taken away your right of education? And she said, well, it baffles me that these men want us to take, want their wives to be treated by a woman doctor. They want their girls to be taught by a woman teacher, but they don't let us study. So I don't understand what's going to happen to this country. But for further notice, the education for senior girls has been banned in Afghanistan, and she doesn't know what's going to happen next year. So I'm circling back to this scientific temper in journalism. So what I have shown to you are very, very extreme cases. I mean, I'm very happy that none of this is applicable to India. And I really, really hope that it should never be the case in any country that we know. These are extremely extreme cases, but at the same time, we can see that the 20 years that this country was free, well, in a way, 20 years that this country was a republic, they had not incorporated the tenets of logical thinking. They had not freed themselves from the clutches of blind belief. They had not given their people the freedom or the ability to act objectively. And therefore, the society, when it transitioned from one phase to another, is currently grappling to find a strong footing in the society. All its people are right now struggling to stay afloat. 90% Afghans are going to slide into poverty this year. 97%, that's like almost all of its population is going to slide into poverty this year. And all of this was avoidable, if not completely possible to eradicate. It was avoidable to an extent if the country was given proper education, if there was access to education at the rural level, if there was access to, there was exposure to different kind of opportunities to girls, they would have contributed equally in the development of the country. Girls, when the statistics say that when you remove girls in Afghanistan, especially if you remove girls from the field, from the employment, basically, you are removing at least 5% of the GDP. This is exactly the facts. These are the facts, hard, cold facts staring the Talibs in the face, and yet they refuse to look at them. They refuse to acknowledge them. They refuse to incorporate these facts into their strategies and strategic thinking, which obviously is going to be a big roadblock in dialogue, in development of peace, in reaching any kind of solution with countries across the world. So my point here is, as I said, we are not Afghanistan, and India is a very progressive country. We know we have achieved a lot. And just today, when I was taking a walk around this campus, I was feeling excessively proud of how far as a nation we have come and how much opportunities our women have, that they are able to contribute, make some serious contributions in the fields of science and so many fields across the board. But we had that opportunity because we were given those exposures where we could go outside and educate ourselves and to equip ourselves with that understanding so that we can contribute across the board. But these girls have not been given that opportunity. These people have not been given this opportunity. So removing scientific temper from your way of life basically can be one of the quickest ways to take the society down, as is very evident in this case. So I think as a journalist, my job, when it comes to scientific temper, my job is to help society develop a viewpoint where they are able to think more objectively, see the facts, and decide for themselves how do they want to assess a situation and how do they want to evaluate it. It's not my job to tell you one way or another whether it is right or wrong. It's not. My job is to give you facts. My job is to tell you the truth. My job is to give you the story as is. As I see, I tell you. And then it is up to you as a reader, as a viewer, to make your own decisions, to make your own conclusions from it. Journalism helps in promotion of scientific temper in social agenda. A traditional society with low literacy and where customs and beliefs prevail, mass communication can be an effective tool. in traditional society, for instance, in India, if we say that, where there is not enough access to media, as in other channels of media, for example, social media or television or internet. So in these cases, journalists can be a very, very important tool in providing information at the grassroots level, authentic information at the grassroots level, which can be done. For example, in Afghanistan, a lot of news happens, actually, a lot of announcements and news is spread across the people through masjids and through radios. I mean, if they don't have access to television, these are the two very, very effective mediums. And of course, through local journalists who work closely with the village elders, who eventually end up taking the news or the information to people as in the first-hand source of information. That helps remove the the element of misinformation that can create panic and that can create false sense of information amongst people. Growth of science communication is linked to scientific advancement. General awareness at grassroots level establishes scientific temper. Naturally, if you are creating awareness, it goes without saying that you will have a certain level of rational thinking, because now you are made aware of all the facts that there are, and with all the information in front of you, you would be able to make right decision or right assessment of the situation. Stimulates objectivity and rationality and helps in the environment of equality, secularism, democratic and universal society. I think at the end of the day, the main objective of scientific temper is to create a society that is pluralistic, that allows everyone to live in absolute harmony, that creates a sense of tolerance amongst us, because once we are able to see the differences and acknowledge them and accept them as part of the society, it just fits perfectly. So this is where my presentation ends. I'm going to pass forward to this. Any questions? Yes, sir. Thank you. Sorry, sir, I can't hear you. Yes, sir. It takes its emotional toll.
Situation look devastating to me. But job of science, one of the jobs which you have not mentioned is asking pertinent and specific questions.
Correct.
So I'm asking you one.
Sure.
Do you think Indian mainstream media is actually living up to that?
No, sir. I'm a journalist. I'll speak the truth. No, it's not, and it is to my great despair that we are not following the principles of journalism as it should be. It's very opinionated. According to me, the journalism in India that is being practiced is very opinionated, and that's not how it should be. Our job is to just show what it is, and then it's up to you to see how you want to see things.
So the next question comes: is there any way out? Actually, are you seeing any light at the end of the tunnel?
Sir, I think so this is where also your job as someone equipped with scientific temper would be to not just take your information from only one source. As a journalist, I would request all of you to, when you're reading an important piece of information and you doubt its veracity, please always read multiple sources. Try and find, ideally, in an ideal world, no news publication should take a side, but if you feel that it is lopsided, if you read and you find the news item to be lopsided, please read at least 3 or 4 other news items to get a complete balanced view. I think that is the strategy I use, at least to make sure that I know for sure that it is not biased. And other than that, I would say that always try to read a neutral publication. Like if you're reading an Indian publication, it is most likely going to favor the Indian side of it all. And if you're reading, let's say, a publication from Pakistan about an issue in India, then you will obviously see a negative side of it all. So see if there is a neutral publication that will, for instance, a global, I always write for global publications, by the way. I have barely contributed anything to Indian media for the very reason that I was asked multiple times to tweak my stories to suit the narrative, which was not acceptable to me. And I made a conscious decision of not rubbing them the wrong side and choosing my clients outside of India, and where I have plenty of opportunity to be fair and objective in my reporting. Thank you, sir, for your question.
So how is the agriculture productivity in Afghanistan?
Sir, agriculture is the main source of their income because agriculture is 85% of Afghanistan is agriculture based. So the productivity is good. They have very handsome productivity, but the problem is economics. They don't have systems in place where they could. Earlier, the exports used to happen. They were making money through its exports, and of course, the local produce was being sold across the country as well. But with all these systems now uprooted, following obviously the coming of the Taliban. So the current situation with of course, and there are parts of the country where there has been official drought declaration. So there are basically, since it's a huge country, some parts have shown good produce, and there are other parts of the country where there's complete drought. For example, in the northwestern part of the country, there has been complete drought. So there's a lot of displacement happening there. There's zero production agricultural produce, and that's also one of the issues that the country is grappling with. In fact, statistics say that there has been more displacement caused because of drought than due to war and conflict. So that's the current situation with its agricultural produce.
So you know about this, opium agriculture.
Yes.
So are these people aware about, the poppy variety, which is more suited for, a medicine rather than a drug?
To be honest, sir, I'm not aware. But that's a very interesting point, and I don't think it has ever been researched. Its possibilities have ever been researched outside of, the drug money.
Like if you increase the thebaine content in poppy, then actually such poppy will be acceptable for open cultivation and will be very, very helpful for, making painkillers, right?
Okay.
So you are not aware.
I'm not aware of that. Sorry, my apologies. But I do know that I'm sure of one thing, that it has the possibilities of it have not been explored, because the whole time that I was working on this story about opium, never did I come across any such thing associated with medical purposes of opium. So.
So more money for drug rather than medicine. Yes. Okay. But thanks for doing this and showing all these.
Thank you. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you, Kanika, for answering questions out of your expertise. Journalists generally they ask questions, they do not answer questions. So she has done a good job. And in journalism, you may not like to be opinionated, but in science, we like to be opinionated. You put forward something, somebody else works on that. Before I go ahead, please give me 5 minutes. I'm excited to talk about something. What Dr. Nautiyal talked about, that we should carry science wherever we can. This started long back in class 11 when we read about something called scientific principle. You might have read about it in your textbooks, scientific principle and scientific temper, which says that do it this way, first do this, then do this, then do this, and ultimately this is how you prove it, or how to develop scientific temper. So that I always say even to the students, that carry it with you, do not accept what is not proven. Because you are scientists, you should not accept it without logic. And in the same line, carrying science to the society, to the rural area, wherever we can, I'll just cite two very small incidences. One of our neighbors, he had stroke. A young boy, 28 years old, he developed stroke. And obviously he was taken to hospital, and some tests were done, and he was told to undergo surgery. And obviously, surgery is not an easy thing to accept. So they were wandering around, and he happened to talk to me. Yes, I am not a surgeon, but when I looked at his tests, I found that his vitamin B12 level was very, very low. So what I suggested him that you give me your blood sample. I would like to have one test on you. I looked for MTHFR gene mutation in him, and I found that he was homozygous for MTHFR 677C2T mutation. What happens because of this disturbance in one carbon cycle metabolism? The red blood cells, they are not that healthy, because of which the number falls and the corpuscular size that increases. And ultimately, these can get stuck somewhere in fine capillaries, giving rise to a condition like stroke. So I brought him here in Lucknow on my expenses. He was a poor guy, and I consulted a doctor in PGI. And I showed him the DNA report, and it was concluded that he can take vitamin B12 capsules for a few days until his levels are normal. And it has been 7 years now. He has not undergone any surgery. And every 6 months, he gets his B12 measured and takes B12 whenever necessary. This was one small incident, so where you can take science to the rural. There is one more, but anyway, let's begin the next session. Regarding sustainable development, we not only need it outside, but we also need it in science. That is why we have dedicated this session to the sustainable development in scientific ecosystem, so that we can prepare budding scientists for tomorrow. And for this, we have dedicated the session to the students, to the young scientists, and the session will be moderated by maybe a relatively old young scientists. We have 6 presentations lined up in this session. The first one in this is contribution of basic sciences in health and well-being, which is to be taken care by Anuradha and Tuba from CDRI. It will be moderated by Dr. Arun Trivedi. Arun? Dr. Arun Trivedi is our colleague at CDRI working in the area of cancer, particularly on the underlying pathomechanisms in breast cancer and in acute myeloid leukemia. He is a recipient of Young Scientist Award from INSA in the year 2013. Arun, over to you.
Oh, hello. Thank you, Rajendra, for this nice introduction. So in this session, which is research scholar session, we would like to start off this session with research scholars from this very institute, Central Drug Research Institute. And first speaker, which is like, the set of speakers are Anuradha and Tuba Kamar. Anuradha is a senior research scholar and Tuba is a project assistant. Both are working in the Division of Microbiology and Molecular Immunology under the guidance of Dr. Susanta Kar. They are working on leishmaniasis and they will be giving their talk on contribution of basic sciences to health and well-being. I welcome them on the stage. Yours, Anuradha and Tuba.
Thank you, sir, for the warm introduction. Good afternoon, everyone present here. I'm Anuradha.
I am Tuba. We are here to present our views on the topic, contribution of basic science to human health and well-being. In the following video presentation, we will present before you the series of breakthrough discoveries that have benefited the human race and led to the sustainable development.
टीवी नहीं चल रहा है ना? Okay, okay. Okay. The United Nations and the UNESCO has jointly proposed to organize the International Year of Basic Sciences for Sustainable Development in the year 2022. And this is a unique opportunity for us to connect the links that connect basic sciences with sustainable development. And these SDGs are 17 globally recognized goals designed for a better tomorrow.
Achieving all 17 SDGs require the considerable input of curiosity-driven basic research. For example, SDG 3, good health and well-being, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, and protection of all life forms.
One of the biggest contributions of science in this regard has been in the effective conversion of energy in its usable form, from harnessing wind power to generating electricity from water in motion.
If I were to ask you that what is the most important contribution that basic science has made to the human advancement, what would you say? I would say it's fire. Harnessing its power gave us the warmth to survive harsh winters and to cook food which nourished us.
Our ability to control fire is attributed to John Walker's discovery of strikeable matches, who invented them as a way to reduce phossy jaw, an occupational health hazard that crippled the lives of female match workers in the early 1800s.
Well, besides fire, water is another basic need of the human consumption. Though Earth comprises of 70% of water, but that too it is brackish, salty in nature. But thanks to the concept of reverse osmosis that led to the establishment of RO power plants and making the water fit for the human consumption and thus aiding in the wastewater management.
While clean water is essential for human survival, so is electricity. And today it is a staple part of every home. But in the early 1700s, the only known sources of electricity were stingrays and lightning. But that provoked the curiosity of researchers who gave us electric motors and incandescent light bulbs, eventually making the shift to more renewable forms of energy like LED lighting, electric cars, turbines, and hydropower. But then Maxwell came along and he first connected electricity with magnetism, giving rise to the creation of instruments that transmit radio waves like microwave, television, and radio telescopes, which went on to aid in the discovery of the Saturn rings.
Well, besides basic amenities, another indicator of well-being is the absence of disease. And if one thing that COVID-19 has taught us is the importance of good health. And Louis Pasteur's germ theory of disease has greatly enhanced our understanding of how disease arises.
Shortly after, Fleming's discovery of penicillin from mold contaminants of his bacterial cultures led to mass production of this first antibiotic that was given as a treatment to wounded soldiers of the World War II, saving countless lives, followed by Waxman's isolation of streptomycin, the very first effective treatment for tuberculosis. And all of these kick-started a whole new era of antibiotics that led to better management of bacterial infections like meningitis and pneumonia.
Well, besides infection, human body is also ravaged by many kinds of illnesses that arises from within, that is due to malnutrition. And many researchers have found the link between the illness and deficiencies in diet, and soon after vitamin B and C were isolated. Today, multivitamins are produced at large scale and are used as a supplement for improving the health of the expected mother, elder, and children alike. Some other interventions that improve the health of the children are pasteurization of milk and administration of ORS.
And speaking of well-being in children, another factor that has markedly contributed to reducing childhood mortality is vaccination. And today, vaccines are mass-produced owing to decades of efforts by researchers Edward Jenner, Louis Pasteur, and Jonas Salk. And it is their concepts of heat-attenuated vaccines that have led to a global reduction in the disease burden of anthrax, measles, mumps, and rabies.
Just like disease prevention, disease diagnosis is equally important. And today, MRI, X-rays, and CT scan have emerged as a powerful tool for the diagnosis of breast cancer and brain stroke in a non-invasive manner. And William Roentgen and Marie Curie have championed the use of radiation therapy for treating cancer. And today, X-rays can be used to visualize everything from body scanning to the very first photograph of DNA structure.
Another powerful biomedical research tool is lasers, and they arose from Max Planck's quantum theory of light. And today, lasers have inspired a flood of activity, from laser printing to scanning barcodes, destroying tumor cells to correcting vision. Yet, these technologies merely arose from a basic understanding of fundamental nature of atomic particles, matter, and energy. And today, it is Heisenberg and Bohr's concepts of quantum physics that have given rise to the transistors, which went from being a semiconductor with 3 connections to an integral building block of the microchip, making our smartphones slim and lightweight today.
Transistors have now replaced large vacuum tubes that were first used in the first generation computer, making a wireless laptop a reality today, and thus ensuring the proper connectivity over the social media. And if I talk about the wireless connectivity, none of it would be possible without the Albert Einstein theory of connectivity that gave birth to satellite communication, helping in the GPS-based monitoring and helping us financial access to the ATM and making the world more connected than ever before.
And the notion of connecting people and technology around the globe originally dates back to Tesla's experiments with sending wireless radio signals that have now built the foundation for the modern day communication, that is the 5G network. And collectively, it is these concepts of electricity, semiconductor devices, and mathematical computing that have given rise to technological advances like 3D printing, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, which has been used to engender sustainable development in various forms, from the control of prosthetic limbs to farmland monitoring for better crop management, visualization of 3D protein structures, as well as personalized app usage.
At the time of these discoveries, these scientists saw their work as simply solving a problem on their bench. But sometimes it's both the beauty and the pain of the research that the results aren't realized until years or even decades later.
But we can be comforted with the fact that our research or even our failures can be used to expand our understanding of the world that we live in, which is the starting point of every sustainable development. And as the saying goes, the science of today is the technology of tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. That has given rise to technology. Okay. Okay. Everyday uses. Maybe the microwave that we saw in this presentation, that is an application of radio waves and the electromagnetic theory of light, which Hertz used to right fermentation.
Okay, thank you very much
Thank
to
you,
both
sir.
of you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
Some of these scientific concepts, they in fact existed before we understood science, as Dr. Nautiyal pointed out. I was just discussing that case. So when I went back to the family history of that boy, I found that they had consanguineous marriage in their family, at least in 3 generations, because of which the homozygosity was so common that he was homozygous even for the most heterozygous locus in the genotype. So being married within the same clan, that is why in Indian system, even before we could understand science, most of the people, they practiced not marrying within their clan, so that they can bring in more heterozygosity in the genome. This is how we apply science, and we were applying science even before we could actually understand the real scientific logic behind that. The next team making presentation is Anuradha Singh and Deepsi Chaurasia from Indian Institute of Toxicology Research. The title is Gearing Research Towards Clean Water and Sanitation, being moderated by Dr. Silendra P. Singh. Dr. Singh. Dr. Singh is working as a scientist at the IITR Lucknow with particular interests in xenobiotic metabolism, pharmacokinetics, and toxicokinetic area. And he was elected to be a member of INEAS, that is Young Scientists Academy of INSA, in the year 2022. Over to you, Dr. Singh.
Thank you, Dr. Rajendra, for the introduction. So now, good afternoon, everyone. So we are moving to the session on the gearing research toward clean water and sanitation. We have Anuradha Singh and Dipti Chaurasia from CSIR Indian Institute of Toxicology Research. They both are working with Dr. Priti Chaturvedi in the area of water quality assessment. And they both have worked on very important projects from Government of India like Namami Ganga Amantran Abhiyan. And presently they are working on like groundwater quality assessment, where they are looking for like a physiochemical characterization and microbiological characterization of the water sample. With this, you can start the presentation. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the warm introduction. A very good afternoon to everyone. My name is Deepshi, and the topic for our presentation is Gearing Research Towards Clean Water and Sanitation. As we all know that clean water and sanitation is one of the most important sustainable development goals, and why it shouldn't be? Because it is the access to clean water and sanitation is an essential commodity for every living being. Water, which is an indispensable component. As we all know that water, which is an indispensable component for the survival, is facing it as a result of its overexploitation. It is facing not only scarcity, but degradation in its quality. And where there are numerous studies which have been conducted, which have reported presence of various harmful and toxic compounds like antibiotics, dyes, heavy metals in the water. And in addition to this, the water scarcity issue is also very known. And recently, Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji has also addressed the issue in his latest broadcasted program, Man Ki Baat, in which he has highlighted the important, he has laid emphasis on water conservation. And he has also mentioned about the various water conservation activities that has been followed by various tribes in the various states. Now, it's not like that the general public is unaware about the presence of these contaminants, and the facilities available in any country are utilizing their full facilities for treating the wastewater by different conventional techniques. But the techniques are do not provide complete removal of these compounds, and as a result, their traces are also detected in river water. And as river water is very much accessible to humans and animals to meet their daily needs, the presence of these compounds imparts toxic negative effects on ecosystem. Moreover, the advanced techniques which are also available, they are associated with high operation cost, they require high energy consumption, and also the process is also complex. Thus, in order to achieve a sustainable solution to it, we address the problem by suggesting the solution of biochar. Now, what is biochar? Biochar is any such component which is obtained from organic waste through the process of pyrolysis. Pyrolysis involves the thermochemical decomposition of organic waste into biochar in an oxygen-absent environment. The biochar has some appropriate properties which makes it a suitable adsorbent and help us in reducing the contaminants from the wastewater. As you can see in the slide, the various lignocellulosic biomasses that has been used for the production of biochar, and the properties which render biochar a suitable adsorbent. That is, its large surface area, its high porous structure, its magnetic properties, and its reusability and various other properties. Now, how biochar uses its properties to remove the contaminant is by bonding it through various interactions like electrostatic attraction, pore filling, pi-pi electron donor acceptor interactions, hydrogen bonding, and etc. Thus, biochar can be suggested as a suitable solution to meet the sustainable development goal of clean water and sanitation. Now, my teammate, Ms. Anuradha, will further explain how we explored these characteristics of biochar in treating the wastewater. Thank you.
गुड आफ्टरनून एवरीवन। जैसा कि हम सभी जानते हैं कि जो इंडस्ट्रीज होती है वो जो हमारी इंडस्ट्रीज है वो सबसे ज्यादा डाइज का यूज करती है, जैसे कि फूड इंडस्ट्री हो गया, टेक्सटाइल हो गया, पेंट हो गया। इन सारी जगहों पे डाइज का अमाउंट बहुत ज्यादा यूज होता है, जिसका डिग्रेडेशन पॉसिबल नहीं होता है क्योंकि इनके कॉम्प्लेक्स स्ट्रक्चर्स होते हैं और वो केमिकली ज्यादा एक्टिव होता है, इसलिए उसका डिग्रेडेशन इजीली नहीं हो पाता है कन्वेंशनल ट्रीटमेंट के मेथड से। इसलिए हमने यहाँ पे बायोचार का यूज किया था डिग्रेडेशन करने के लिए। सिंथेटिक डाई के बहुत सारे साइड इफेक्ट्स होते हैं जो कि ह्यूमन के लिए और टॉक्सिक इन्वायरमेंट पैदा करते हैं वाटर में। बायोचार को हमने बनाया था लिग्नोसेल्यूलोजिक बायोमास से, जिसमें काउ डंक और हमने राइस हस्क लिया था। काउ डंक और राइस हस्क 2 लिग्नोसेल्यूलोजिक बायोमास है जो कि एज अ वेस्ट इन्वायरमेंट में होते हैं। इनका ये हमें इजीली अवेलेबल होते हैं और ये बहुत ही लो प्राइस में हमें मिल जाते हैं। इनका हमने पायरोलिसिस किया था। पायरोलिसिस के थ्रू हमने बायोचार बनाया था, जिसमें उनमें 2 बाई प्रोडक्ट्स बनते हैं, बायोगैस और बायो ऑयल। बायोचार का यूज हमने किया था सिंथेटिक डाई रिमूवल में, जिसमें कांगो रेड डाई का यूज किया था। और हमने ये देखा कि इसमें 2 तरह की स्टडी कंडक्ट करी थी, एक बैच स्टडी, दूसरा पायलट स्केल स्टडी। बैच स्टडी में हमने पीएच को कांस्टेंट रख के अदर वेरिएशंस किए थे, दूसरे में टेम्परेचर को कांस्टेंट रख के अदर वेरिएशंस किए थे, और तीसरे स्टडी में हमने डाई को कांस्टेंट रख के वेरिएशंस किया था और बायोचार को कांस्टेंट रख के वेरिएशंस किया था। इसमें हमने बायोचार का प्री और पोस्ट ट्रीटमेंट के बाद इनकी स्टडी करी थी, जिसमें असैम, बेट और FTIR किया था और CHNS एनालिसिस किया था। इसमें हमने ये पाया कि जो बायोचार होता है वो कांगो रेड डाई को अब्जॉर्ब करता है, जिसमें पीएच साबन बेस्ट होता है अब्जॉर्प्शन के लिए, जिसमें 80 to 90% अब्जॉर्प्शन होता है। और हमने ये भी देखा कि जो हमारा टाइम ड्यूरेशन होता है वो 84 आवर होता है, जिसमें सबसे ज्यादा रिमूवल होता है कांगो रेड डाई का थ्रू बायोचार, जिसमें मोस्टली 60 से लेके 98% 99% तक का रिमूवल देखा गया है। इससे हमें ये पता चलता है कि जो हमारा बायोचार होता है उसको हम लार्ज स्केल पे यूज कर सकते हैं वेस्ट ट्रीटमेंट में। बायोचार का यूज हम करने में हमारे 2 एम हो जाते हैं। एक तो वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट इसलिए भी जरूरी है क्योंकि वेस्ट जनरेशन बहुत ज्यादा हो रहा है और उसका मैनेजमेंट प्रॉपर तरीके से नहीं हो पा रहा है, जिसकी वजह से एनवायरनमेंट में बहुत सारी डिजीजेस हो रही हैं और उससे बहुत सारी प्रॉब्लम्स होती हैं। और कहीं ना कहीं वो वाटर में भी पार्टिसिपेट करता है, वाटर में वो चला जाता है और वाटर ब्लॉकिंग का काम करता है। इसलिए वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट भी हो रहा है और इसके थ्रू हम अगर वेस्ट का रिमूवल कर देते हैं वाटर से, तो वो वाटर हम कहीं ना कहीं एग्रीकल्चर में भी यूज कर सकते हैं, अदर पर्पसेस में भी यूज करते हैं। और जो हमारी ग्लोबल प्रॉब्लम हो रही है, वाटर की कमी हो रही है हर चीज में, उसका भी सोल्यूशन हमें मिल जाता है। तो इसलिए हमने ये देखा है कि जो रिएक्टर बेस्ड एक्सपेरिमेंट होता है वो बहुत ही अच्छा उपाय है वेस्ट से निपटने के लिए और वेस्ट वाटर ट्रीटमेंट के लिए। थैंक यू।
Hello. Thanks for the presentation, Anuradha and Deepsi. So is there any question from the audience?
So suppose you have 100 liters of wastewater with Congo dye, right?
जी जी.
So how many grams of biochar actually you would be needing for clarification?
सर इस स्टडी में हमने 5 ग्राम बायोचार लिया था, जिसमें हमने उसको 100 ppm का बायोचार वो था कांगो रेड डाई, जिसको हमने रिमूव किया था। हम लोगों ने इसमें 5 लीटर तक का रिमूवल किया था, 5 लीटर सोल्यूशन बनाया था जिसका रिमूवल किया था। तो 5 ग्राम डाई से 5 लीटर तक का सोल्यूशन रिमूव कर सकते हैं 100 ppm का। ppm का कंसंट्रेशन अगर बढ़ता है तो हमारा जो अमाउंट होगा वो कम हो जाएगा, और उसका कंसंट्रेशन अगर कम होता है तो अमाउंट हमारा ज्यादा हो जाएगा।
Have you studied the
sir.
Congo dye, you know,
yes,
concentration in wastewater?
जी सर, it is also reported in a research paper.
So how much? It is 150 ppm.
Yes.
Okay. And then did you try many things before boiling down to rice straw and cow dung?
जी सर.
What kind?
स्लैज बायोचार भी हमने यूज किया है, स्लैज का भी किया है, और भी मतलब वो फूड प्रोडक्ट्स और भी हैं जिसमें बनानास वगैरह का भी हमने यूज किया था उसके उसका. The sewage sludge biochar, the cow dung and the rice husk, and a study is going on with further lignocellulose waste that can be explored for use as biochar.
So do you think that the presence of silica in rice was helpful in doing this kind of removal?
So we are not sure about it, but we'll definitely
look
explore
into
this aspect of the rice husk.
Okay. And you said that the maximum removal happened after 80 hours, if I am correct.
84 hours. At 84 hours.
So why after 84 hours only? Or the process of adsorption is very slow, and it got completed around 80 hours.
The process, I think, requires some more modification and more addition of such components that can make the process as fast.
My question is different. Why this removal happened continuously and continued and finished by 80 hours?
No, we scheduled the removal at a different time, but at 84 hours, the best removal efficiency was obtained, sir.
Otherwise, if you incubate for shorter period, lesser will be removed.
Yes, sir. Different variations are there in the graph, sir. But at 84 hours, we achieved the maximum removal, sir.
Okay, because you need a very efficient or fast system, right?
Yes, maximum dyes can get absorbed to it, and the concentration of the dye in the water is reduced.
Your aim should be online kind of removal situation, like water is coming and it is treated and water becomes free of Pango dye.
Yes, sir. We are still standardizing the protocol.
Okay.
So that's
good.
Very interesting talks, Anuradha and Anuradha. Okay. Both the teams had Anuradha as the first speaker. Just again, the role of basic sciences in health, water, and sanitation. You may have heard about Dr. Semmelweis, a Hungarian obstetrician who first said, wash your hands. The three words, wash your hands, that can reduce infections drastically. And he was known to be an outspoken doctor. And as far as I remember, if my memory is correct, even a case was filed against him that what you are saying just doesn't make any sense. So later he demonstrated that in the ward where he was working versus others, in other wards, there was a rate of 17% of death due to childbed. And the patients in that country, they said that we would like to deliver on the road rather than getting admitted to their wards because of very high death rate. And Dr. Semmelweis, he introduced wash your hands, and the infection rate was drastically reduced. Unfortunately, Dr. Semmelweis himself died of infection, I think some 20-25 years later. Going forward, we have the third talk from NBRI by Rudra and Sanchita. They are talking on strengthening research for preserving biodiversity. This is to be moderated by Dr. Dibyendu Adhikari. Dr. Dibyendu. Dr. Dibyendu is principal scientist at National Botanical Research Institute, Lucknow. He has interests in environmental science and forest ecology, with specific interests in technology development for restoration of degraded forests and conservation of threatened species and control of invasive plants. Over to you, Dr. Adhikari, for this session.
Thank you, Dr. Saab, for the warm introduction. Now I would like to call upon the stage Rudra and Sanchita. So to introduce them briefly. Rudra is working as a project associate in plant genetic resources and improvement. He works on plant-insect interaction, chemical ecology, and plant association under Dr. S.N. Jaina. And Sanchita Singh is working as a project associate in plant molecular biology. She also works on plant pest and crop interactions under Dr. Praveen Verma. So their talk is strengthening research efforts for preserving biodiversity. Over to you, Rudra and Sanchita.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it's so good to see you, such a big audience after the lunch. Usually we do not expect this kind of audience after the lunch, but hopefully we will be able to justify what we are presenting right now. So yeah, good evening, everyone. We are so happy to hear. And today we will be talking about biodiversity and how research efforts can help in strengthening biodiversity research at a local scale as well as at a global scale. So let's start. There might be some technical difficulties because we have some videos and interactive audios, and please kindly bear with us for that.
Hello everyone, to start with, I will be talking about biodiversity. So, Rudra has explained the concept of biodiversity. Now, why there is a need of biodiversity preservation? Biodiversity rich planet is required for proper functioning of an ecosystem. And why we require a properly functional ecosystem? Because ecosystem offers us immense number of services. Now, to further give you a deeper insight on the ecosystem service, I would like you all to focus on the two videos. So, video number 1 is showing you the heartbeat of. Video number 1 is showing you the heartbeat of honeybee from a low polluted area, and video number 2 is showing you the heartbeat of honeybee from a highly polluted area. And you can see there is a very clear difference in the rhythm of the two, and this difference is due to the accumulation of heavy metals in the one which is residing in the area with high pollution. Now, why we are talking about honeybees? Because honeybees are the major pollinators, and 80% of our crop plants are pollinated by bees. Now, this is, can you imagine a situation where there is no honeybee? Such scenarios can reduce the population of honeybee of an area. And now imagine a situation where there is no honeybee. Now, this is just one example, and this is just one organism. As we are speaking right now, right here, there are many thousands of organisms which are fighting for their existence. Now imagine the magnitude of the problem we are facing. The bar graph at the bottom is showing you the current scenario of insect population, and there is a decrease by 41% in the past 10 years.
So, as you can see, biodiversity is not uniformly distributed across the globe, right? So, what you can see in this figure is the tropical region is much more biodiversity rich as compared to the other parts of the globe. And especially if you particularly look at Indian context, then you can see that Northeast and the Western Ghats are having those red patches, which basically means that those regions are rich in biodiversity. But it also gives you an opportunity to think of, if those regions are biodiversity rich, then it probably have the threat of losing those biodiversity in that area also. What are the threats that we are facing currently? So we have climate change, we have habitat loss, we have pollution, invasive species, so on and so forth. So just to give you a quantitative estimation of that, IUCN has proposed a very nice data set. They have said that nearly 40,000 of species are threatening, and they are going to face extinction in the next few years. So just to accumulate it all, it gives you a 28% of all the species which has been accessed in IUCN database. So this is quite threatening, and we need to come up with strategies of how to save the planet.
Now, what we can do as a part of scientific community, how we can contribute to the solution of the problem. A very assuring answer is following the sustainable development. Now, we really need to reorient our research in such a way that sustainable development becomes the central idea of the research. For that, here we are proposing few strategies and few studies with the goals they are targeting.
Right. So the first one is Earth Biogenome Project. We know that some of you might have heard about this ambitious project, which is a collaborative global project where there is a basic aim of sequencing all the eukaryotic organisms in our planet. Now, if you have the sequence of the organism in your hand, then you can easily tell the evolutionary relationship of those organisms from the past and the present. And as well as you can also solve issues related to the medicine, related to the health and food crisis. So this project is really an essential component of protecting biodiversity. Then second, you have One Health. One Health is also a global approach. So the basic aim of One Health is to work on infectious diseases, just like Ebola, COVID and all. So these infectious diseases get transmitted from the wildlife to the human because of the spillover. So One Health basically works on the wildlife and the human population and how these diseases get transmitted. So if you have an idea of this transmission, then you can easily come up with the strategies of how to stop those diseases from coming in contact with the human. So this is a famous paper which shows that how climate change and temperature rise can have effect on the virus load. And this is where One Health can come and actually help us to mitigate these kind of problems. Then you have carbon drawdown. Now we all are talking about climate change, right? Now, in order to mitigate that climate change problem, you have to sequester the carbon dioxide, which is already accumulated in the atmosphere. Now, who are the best players to solve that? Of course, plants. But you cannot just plant a single plant without knowing the physiology of it, right? So how much carbon does the plant sequester? What are the conditions that are required for the plant to grow in that region? So to answer those questions, a global consortium has developed where scientists have come up with strategies to know how much quantity of carbon does a plant can fix. And with the help of this, people can actually really see that which plant species best fit to which environmental condition. So this is a famous paper which has been published in Nature, which shows this kind of activities, and the sustainable development goals which are associated with carbon drawdown are in your screen.
Now, smart farming. 80% of deforestation is caused due to agriculture activities. So there is a definite need of changing our approach towards agriculture. So what we can do, this is where smart farming comes in picture. So following smart farming, what we can do is we really need to combine the conventional agriculture approaches with technological advances. And with that, we can, there are many labs all over the world, including the labs of NBRI, which are working on plant responses towards different stress. And a huge data is generated in this field. And this data can further be combined with AI and machine learning for development of tools which are of direct benefit to the farmers. Then a very promising field of smart farming is indoor farming. So we really need to strengthen this area as indoor farming requires lesser amount of water, lesser land, and the produce is pesticide free. This is the set of goals which can be achieved following this. Next is basic research. A lot is yet to be explored in the area of basic research. What we can do is we can combine two different disciplines, like the ecological data can be further combined with the plant systematics data for addressing global issues like thermal infertility. And through this is the set of goals which can be achieved. Now let's talk about substitution. Substitution is a very promising approach. It's a very wide approach. So this paper is a very recent and very interesting paper, and they have claimed that by replacing 20% of beef consumption with microbial protein, we can achieve by the year 2050, there can be a decline in deforestation by a percentage of 50. And this is the set of goals which can be achieved through this approach.
Yeah, so in order to achieve all these goals, you need public support, right? So by public support, we mean to say that you need capacity building, you need to include local people who can come and support your research. So what are the possibilities by which you can do that? Number one is citizen science program. It's a very important program where common people can really participate in science, even though they do not have much idea about scientific background, but they can collect data from the natural environment, they can see anything and they can upload that data in the internet. And that database can be easily accessible to a larger community of scientists who can use that data to come up with some models, some predictions, some patterns of how biodiversity is losing. The second objective is sustainable development, which can be done with ecotourism. Ecotourism is a very interesting concept where tribal people can participate. Their income can be generated through ecotourism, and at the same time, the biodiversity of that particular area can be preserved in such a way. So these are some of the examples which have been proposed. So just like using citizen science to track illegal trafficking of some birds in Himalaya, and you have some certain goals which can also be achieved through the citizen science program and public engagement.
Now I would like to focus on NDRI. What is the role of NDRI in biodiversity preservation? NDRI, the lungs of the city, has a very huge rich biodiversity, not only of plants, but also of many other organisms. As you can see on the screen, the institute has many unique and rare collection of plants. And talking about preservation, we of course cannot overlook the cycad conservation center of the institute, which has the largest collection of cycads in South Asia and 9th largest collection of cycads all over the world. The institute also has its own phase facility.
So now let's talk about what are the initiatives that has been undertaken by the government of India. So just for giving you an example, these are certain kind of projects or approaches that have been undertaken by the Prime Minister's office, and you have Conservation of Wildlife Studies, NCBS, Indian Biodiversity Portal. So just to name a few, we have DBT's Conservation of Threatened Plants in India, which have managed to conserve the plant species which are particularly threatened in Northeast India. Then you have Secure Himalaya project, which talks about snow leopard and turtle conservation. You also have in NBPGR, NCL, TERI, you have tissue culture repository where rare threatened plants can be conserved with the help of tissue culture. Then you have Tamil Nadu Forest Department. This is very interesting initiative where the Forest Department and private companies come together and they have managed to recreate a rainforest in the Andamalai Hills. So these are just some of the examples. There are many more, and due to time constraints, it was not possible for us to cover all of it. So we'll stop here and we'll take some questions and discussion. Yeah. Right, yeah. Yeah, correct. Absolutely right. That's fantastic. So, so one of the initiative what I remember is done at Meghalaya. So in Meghalaya, one of the very important keystone species is fig. Fig trees. Now, what they have done is they have made these living root bridges out of the fig trees. So that living root bridges are being constructed in such a way that it provides sustainability to the tribal people, and it also increases the opportunity for ecotourism. So people from outside, they come, they stay on that forest region just to get a feeling of the biodiversity. And at the same time, the tribal people, by using the forest, they manufacture some very interesting handicraft things. So government of India have specially undertaken some interesting project initiative where they are actually trying to preserve the number of tree species of fig which are present and which are associated in connecting those living root bridges. So that's one of the initiatives. Yeah, right.
Not only this, I would like to highlight one more point that even individuals are also participating. In Uttarakhand, there are stretches of forest which are owned by people, not by the government. And people have taken, people have come forward to secure the tribal of that area. What they have done, they have made the eco-tourism concept. They have picked up the eco-tourism. People can from the urban area of the country can come and have a feel of the forest, and whatever their requirement is, food and shelter, whatever they require, that is provided by the tribes. Yeah. And so there's, in this way there is a flow of money to the tribes also.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, NGO.
It's
right.
Private.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rudra and Sanchita.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Is it not on? It's on. Yeah, so it is about knowledge diversity and harnessing it to ultimately help in preserving biodiversity. Yeah, efforts are being made. And that takes me back to our BSc days. We used to read a very voluminous botany book. And I remember reading the names of so many plants, so many species. And we used to say, looking at the professor, why the hell I have to remember so many names? This is grown in Himalayas, this is grown in South India, and this and there. So in case this plant is not there, how does it affect my life? It just does not affect my life because I'm not at all using it anyway. But coming back to science, look at Dr. Singh's example. He stated in the talk in the morning that he cloned a gene from ferns to ultimately introduce resistance in cotton. So in case that gene didn't exist somewhere, how would he make good use of that to achieve something else? So that is how biodiversity is important. Say, and we all are, say, basically you can say bioreactors, molecular, maybe biofactories. Say a cow can produce milk, maybe a mango tree can make mango, a Karela tree, plant can make Karela out of the same thing, right? We cannot make out of any of these things. So this is where biodiversity plays a significant role, and we must make efforts to preserve the gene pool in its natural arrangement so that we can make a better use in the future. So our next talk is by Vidushi Tyagi and Nikki Deepa from CMAP. They are talking on scientific innovation for economic growth, and the moderator is Dr. Akanksha Singh. Dr. Singh. Dr. Akanksha is a senior scientist working at CMAP Lucknow. She is working in the area of plant microbe interactions, and she is a young scientist awardee from INSA for the year 2021. Over to you, Dr. Akanksha.
Thank you, Dr. Rajendra, for the kind introduction. And so for CMAP, we have been given a theme, scientific. So Ms. Vidushi is basically working on modulation of gut immunity using bioactive molecules derived from medicinal aromatic plants. And likewise, Nikki is working on plant microbe interaction with specific emphasis on endophytes and how they modulate the plant immunity and the specific metabolites. So before handing over the mic to you all, please see to it that you stick within the time frame, that you have 8 minutes time. And over to you both.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such a kind introduction. Very good afternoon to you all. My name is Vidushi Tyagi.
And I'm Nikki Deepa.
And on the behalf of CSIR-CMAP, today we are here to present our views on the topic, Scientific Innovation for Economic Growth. आर्थिक विकास के लिए विज्ञान में नवीनीकरण. So why this topic is true in its complete sense? And India is the finest example for this. Let's get back to the time during independence in 1947 when we were dependent on import in many different areas, be it manufacturing excellence, be it industrial excellence, be it R&D and so on. But since then till now, we have come a long way where India is the largest growing economy in the world. So let's have a look on a global economic rate that has been increasing from years to years. And also, as I have mentioned previously, like we were dependent on import, but now not only the India's GDP, but the export value from India has also been increased. And what are the key reasons? What are the factors that are contributing towards India's GDP? Agricultural sector, industrial sector, and other services. So agriculture and industry are itself contributing towards 50% of India's GDP. What is the root cause behind increase in economic rate, not only for India, but also for globally? Innovation. Innovation in each and every different area, be it agricultural sciences, be it manufacturing sciences, be it civil, be it R&D, and so on. So for India to march ahead on a sustainable development pathway, it should focus more on towards achieving a goal that has already been stated by our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, Atmanirbhar Bharat. And for that, we should work towards promoting traditional knowledge system, developing indigenous technologies, and encouraging grassroots innovations. So on the basis, there is one data that has been published by Global Innovation Index, and the different countries has been ranked globally on the basis of different innovation elements. Switzerland came first, while Sweden at second, and USA at third. If we'll see for India, it has improved its rank from the year 2019 to 2021, that is 46. And what are the global priority areas in technologies? There are major 4 segments, and energy storage, new materials, biotech and chemicals, under which different themes are there. So there are lots of innovations that can be talked about, but here I am taking a creative liberty of going with some of the innovations that had happened in India. Starting from Swaraj tractor to first developed parallel computer flow solver to becoming the global leader in the not only in the production but also in the export of developed indigenous varieties of mint. we displaces China to the second position. And as we can see, it from an importer to the largest exporter. And as we can see, there is one positive relationship between an innovation and development where India is performing above expectation for the level of development. So for more innovations to be carried out in detail, I will hand over my mic to my colleague.
Thank you, ma'am. A very good afternoon, everyone. Now, taking a step forward and talking about various other innovations in the field of science and technology, let us dive into the future of energy, that is biofuels. Now, biofuels, as we all know, that these are basically hydrocarbons that have been originated from that has been generated from organic matter by the process of deoxygenation, selective cracking, isomerization, and fermentation. And because of its benefits, right from being sustainable to eco-friendly, it has impacted the globe in a great way. Now, globally, these biofuel producing pertaining industries, they have provided 47,400 jobs and 1.9 billion in wages have been already paid. And that is a huge impact. Now, talking about India, since 2018, according to Indian policy of biofuels, India has increased its ethanol production, right from 380 million liters to 3.5 billion liters, in order to achieve the goal of 20% ethanol blending and 5% biodiesel blending. Now, talking about innovation, CSIR, Indian Institute of Petroleum, has played its way. They have generated biojet fuel right from the Jatropha seeds, and those biojet fuel has been successfully tested in military aircraft and in public aviation unit SpiceJet. A great step towards Atmanirbhar Bharat. Now, talking about yet another innovation in the field of nanotechnology is carbon nanotubes. Carbon nanotubes, these are basically allotropes of carbon that has a cylindrical shape. But what's so important, what's so special about these carbon nanotubes? Now, these carbon nanotubes are known for its extraordinary qualities of being very strong molecule and high tensile strength. It has a high current carrying capacity. It has high elasticity. It has high absorbance, low weight, and most importantly, it is biocompatible. And because of its extraordinary qualities, it has impacted various sectors, right from being in the field of plant growth, for biosensors, hydrogen storage, battery, even in wastewater treatment, drug targeting, and even high efficiency electrical devices formulations. And because of its impact in various sectors, it now has a global market of 876 USD million, and it is expected, the market is expected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 14.4% and is now being forecasted to be 1,714 million until 2026. Now, talking about yet another innovation in the field of optics that mainly based on the normal phenomena that we would have studied, that is of total internal reflection. Now, optical fibers has given rise to a new technology of fiber optics. It was first studied by Dr. Narendra Singh Kampani, and he was Indian-American physicist. And it is a proud moment to understand that how this optical fibers has changed the entire scenario of the world. Right from being applied in telecommunication, from improvising infrastructure, soil sciences, military sciences, optical fibers has it all. Now, the world market of optical fibers, it stood at 4.3 USD billion in 2019. And if we talk about India, the optical fiber cables market is expected to grow at a rate of 19.7% and to reach 2.1 billion by 2024. And since India is much more involved in bringing all the 5G technologies, this optical fibers, they have an important role to play in that. Now, by going through all those slides, we know that innovation it gels well with the R&D department. Because and India is a land of innovative minds, and that has been truly truly marked well with all the innovation that have taken place during the pandemic time. And if we talk about financial year 2021, the science and technology alone, the sector alone added 14,97,501 employees, becoming India's top employment generator. And that is huge for a country having the unemployment problem. Now, but using only 0.6% of the GDP for R&D development in India is not going to do much well to the economic development. For that, instead, we need to follow a closed economy cycle in which the scientific innovation should be in close association with the market. And that with the close association with the market, and that market should give us good economic gain. And in turn, that economic gain can again be used to be invested in the R&D department in order to boost the scientific innovation, the budding scientific innovations everywhere. And because innovation is all about imagining the future and filling the gaps. Thank you, everyone.
If there are any questions?
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Vidushi, Nikki, and Dr. Kangsha. Regarding scientific innovation for economic growth, again, I would like to quote an example. I am from Haryana, Punjab belt, and we grow rice since ages. And I remember in the childhood when we used to plant paddy ourselves, they used to say this is PR6. We didn't know what is PR6, but we just knew that PR6 means rice. So that paddy was called PR6. It was a short height plant and used to produce about 8 quintals of grain per acre, which was not even sufficient for the farmer himself, even if he had no less than 6 acres of land. It was not sufficient for him to even manage his expenses. And later on, as science progressed, sometime in 2003 or 4, I heard 1121. This was called 1121 by farmers. And this is Pusa 1121, which is a variety of rice developed by Indian Agricultural Research Institute. And this has a good height, is resistant to so many pests and also to the weather conditions. And the production is 3 times. It is about 24-25 quintal now. And even if a farmer has 3-4 acres of land, he can not only sustain, he can also get it harvested by all instruments and still have sufficient for him. The production is 3 times. That is how science has contributed to economic growth. And coming to the next presentation, we have just last 2. This one is by Akanksha and Sasidhar on action for curtailing global warming and climate change, to be moderated by Dr. Susanta Kal. Dr. Kal is our colleague at CDRI. He's working in the area of molecular microbiology and immunology. His interests include deciphering of the cell signaling networks of innate and adaptive immunity associated with host-parasite interactions. Dr. Kar, what?
So a very good afternoon to all of you. So I would like to welcome Akanksha Singh, who is a UGC GRF fellow working in the endocrinology division of CDRI. And her area of specialization is ovarian pathophysiology. And Shashidhar Kalur, who is a project associate in the same division, in the endocrinology division, and he's working on the diagnostic and therapeutic approach for infertility. So today they are going to speak on the topic action for curtailing the global warming and climate changes. Now let's hear their innovative ideas to tackle the global warming and climate changes. Floor is yours.
Hello, thank you for introducing us, sir. A very good evening to one and all present here. Myself, Shashidhar.
And myself, Akansha Singh.
We are standing here to speak on the topic, Action for Curtailing Global Warming and Climate Change. Please play the video. We're all sitting here like literally uncomfortably because there is no AC. Let me just tell about what is that. The Earth is getting warmer and warmer. It is because it's called global warming, and it's a real thing. Factories, cars, and pollution, these stuffs can increase the temperature of the world by about 2 to 3 degrees. And that could be deadly to many animals as well as humans.
Global warming and climate change. These are the major problems in this world, and they can immediate to attention before it's too late.
And when we look at coral bleaching in Australia Lizard Island, within the span of 2 months, my dear friends, the dumping of industrial waste directly into ocean has led to the bleaching. And when we look at the glacial melt in Antarctica region, Greenland, we can see that the loss of ice has been melted. And that has led to increase in sea level and resulted in permanent climate change across the globe. And according to the philosophy, it is believed that we did not inherit this earth from our ancestors. Rather, we are taken it from our future generation at the time and place which we have polluted our entire world.
So this is the high time for us to work on a verb. That is, prevention is better than cure. Look, we have a other option or plans. If there is one fail, there is always plan B. But in this session, there is only one planet. There is no planet B.
And when we look at International Year for Basic Science and Sustainable Development, we have this contribution of basic science that have led to action against global warming and climate change. I would like to mainly focus on use of biofertilizers. Biofertilizers are like mainly used to convert infertile land into fertile land, wherein the plant is like developed or produced, and it is more nutritious in way. And use of electric vehicles, we have shifted from conventional vehicles, use of petrol and diesel, fossil fuels, to electric vehicles to reduce the carbon dioxide emission across the globe. And when we look at energy efficient houses, we all love to have a house where there is no power cut and live our lifestyle healthily. That can be achieved with the contribution of basic science. And when we look at preserving biodiversity, please play the video.
Preserving of biodiversity has led to the save the many living organisms. For example, removal of microplastic from water bodies, which can help to increase the purity of water and life of aquatic animal. And other is afforestation. Afforestation is also the major content. It helps to converting the bird land into the fertile one, and which also help in converting the cultivation and which prevent the soil erosion. In this video,
sorry, there is a technical problem in the video.
Okay. In this video, in Africa, the burns are created and for the helping of the afforestation, which also help to convert the drought land into the vegetative land. And also the water harvesting. Water harvesting is the major concern which increase the groundwater level, and the same water can be used for the other purpose like irrigation. And we have also the other example. There is like water harvesting facilities at Aliganj CSIR scientist apartment.
And when we look at economic growth, how it is impacting on global warming, to fight against global warming actually. And use of LED bulbs. The conventional bulbs used to produce a lot of carbon dioxide, but whereas LED bulbs, and they're cost effective as well. And one more thing I would like to bring is like switching off the light when not in use. In our lab, we have more than lights, like 50 lights in per lab, and consider it like refrigerators and other things. It is a lot of energy consumption. So when we put off light when it's not in use, then we can have economically developing. And in case of nutritious food at affordable cost, government has planned many schemes for midday meal schemes and producing, giving less money and giving more amount of grains to the below poverty level people. That shows that we are economically developing. And when we consider International Year for Basic Science and Sustainable Development Goals,
according to the United Nations Assembly, these are the 17 goals. So everyone should need to work together to have a better future. Here's some of the example of the sustainable development, like no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, and their climate action and other things to maintain the
sustainable development in the worldwide.
Since morning, we have been listening about global warming and climate change and preserving biodiversity, different sessions. And into the action to reduce global warming and climate change, we have planting trees and water harvesting are the basic things. But what about new in it, innovative things? We have rooftop gardens. In urban cities and all, there is no land for cultivating forest areas. What about rooftop gardens are the solution for it? When you cultivate plant on your roof, you will have a reduced temperature at your room. And also you can cultivate vegetables using bio-waste that is produced in your own house. So a reduce, reuse, recycle completely explains about waste management and segregation as well. And when we look at nanotechnology, we also have the example of use of microplastic to convert, reduce plastics from water bodies. And let me talk about plasma discharge system. In Singapore, the plasma discharge system is used majorly. The waste is collected from every part of Singapore and transferred to industry, where they incinerate everything. And they suspend the smoke as well as water that they used to this plasma discharge system, wherein it releases pure oxygen into the air, as well as pure water into the water bodies, wherein there is no harm for the environment as well as aquatic animals. And when we look at renewable energies,
keeping wide observation of the nature, the renewable energy, these are the key to for a sustainable future, such as the hydro energy, biomass energy, geothermal energy, tidal energy, solar energy, and also the wind energy. These are the major source of the renewable energy and which can reduce the global warming and climate change.
And please play the video. And I would like to bring an example that, so again, the video is not playing. Let me tell what is there in the video. Singapore is one of the greenest cities in the world. It has more number of trees than the humans which are actually living there. On an average, these trees that are there reduce the global temperature by about 2 to 3 degrees Celsius. My dear friends, 2 to 3 degrees Celsius. In this hot and humid country, 2 to 3 degrees Celsius make a big difference. And when we look at true human role models across the globe, we have Sir David Attenborough. He is awarded Champion of the Earth in 2022 by United Nations Environment Program. He says that right now we are facing man-made disaster of global scale, our greatest threat in thousands of years, climate change. So when we see
in India, Garvita, John Paul, Varad, Malaika, and Aditya, these are the 5 young climate warriors, and they fight against the different issues which concern the environmental crisis. And please meet the Balbir Singh, his work against the water pollution in India.
We have Padma Shri awardee Tulsi Gowda. She has an immense knowledge about medicinal plants as well as irrigation system. And we also have Salu Marda Timmaka, where she has dedicated most of her life to cultivate or plant trees in her southern part of India. And she says that trees are her own children, which they help in future generation as well. And we also have different environmental NGOs worldwide where they fight against different environmental animal poaching, etc. So be the change that you want to see in the world. Clean house leads to clean street. Clean streets leads to clean city. Clean cities forms clean country. Clean countries make better planet. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Akanksha and Shashidhar. And I believe that we got the message that be the change you want to see in the world. So if you have any question from audience, is there any question? So if not, then I will ask you a single question that what do you think if we change our lifestyle that could impact on this global warming or that can improve this problem, global warming or climate changes, yes, changing lifestyle?
For example, riding bicycle. So most of here people bring 2-wheelers, 4-wheelers to the office.
Yes.
So when we use bicycle, use of fossil fuel is less and carbon emission is also very less and you'll be healthy. What more you want? So this small change can have a big impact.
Nice answer. Like pulling car when we come to office.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Shashidhara.
Yes.
Our next presentation from BSIP, 2 students. I would like to welcome Prachiti Arora, who is a BSRS SRF fellow from BSIP Lucknow. Her work focuses on glacial geomorphology, paleoclimate reconstruction and perception study in the higher Himalayan region. And Shirish Verma, who is a CSIR-CDRI, works on late quaternary landscape evolution and climate variability of northwestern Himalayan. So their topic in action for curtailing global warming and climate change, the same topic. And the focus will be on individual efforts to curb climate changes and contribution of paleobiologists as well as the BSIP towards this effort. Stage.
Thank you so much, sir, for the introduction. Am I audible to you people? Yeah, all right, thank you. First of all, we would like to thank INSA Lucknow chapter convener for giving us the opportunity to speak on this platform. So we are going to speak on the impact of curtailing the impact of climate change and global warming. As I believe the previous speakers have covered it very beautifully. So we are going to focus here as what we, as a paleoclimatologist, how we are going to curtail the impact of this climate change and the global warming. So we see in our day-to-day life that climate change is basically one of the pressing issue of the time, of the decades. So we see how climate change is being. We read it in our day-to-day life in newspaper, how it is being how the polar ice sheets are being melted with time, how the sea level is changing, how we read in newspaper how this coastal community would have to shift from their place to the interior of the continent if the present rate of climate change continues. So it's basically the why. So here the question comes: why this climate change is happening? It's just because of the global warming. Global warming is one of the components which are causing this climate change to happen, and we can see. So here question comes: why these glaciers are melting? Why these sea levels are increasing? So it's just because global surface temperature is increasing, so which led to the melting of the glaciers, which ultimately increases the flux in the oceans, and which led to the increase in the sea level, and so on and so forth. So here we have a graph which is showing the different climatic data sets which are taking the average global surface temperature since 1850 to 2019. So they are, I mean, all the data sets are more or less in the best fit, and they are showing that yes, it is increasing. Global surface temperature is increasing. So what are the factors which are responsible for such climate change and such increase in the global surface temperature? So in one word we can describe it: it's the energy imbalances which can be caused by the two processes, that could be natural processes or by the human activities. So the natural processes includes the volcanic activities. We have volcanic eruptions both at the continent, both over the continents and inside the ocean. So this volcanic eruption releases a lot of harmful gases, which ultimately led to the warming of the atmosphere and the surfaces. Second most important natural process is the tectonic plate movement. Yeah, we know that this tectonic plate moves from one place to another with time. So sometimes they collided with each other, led to the formation of mighty Himalayas like things, or mountain belt, or sometimes they move away from one another, which again led to the rise of the magma to the surface in the form of the lava, which again releases a lot of harmful gases in the atmosphere, and which ultimately increases the global surface temperature. So changes in the sun, yeah, with time it's been observed that the sun's activity, sun's spots is changing, which are causing changes in the sun's illumination or the intensity of the sunlight, which is being received by the earth. It changes with time. At the last fourth one is the natural processes, includes the shift in the Earth's orbit. So we know that Earth is rotating on its axis, and as well as it is revolving around the sun. So this axis of rotation and the revolution of the Earth around the sun changes with time, which is being explained beautifully by the Milankovitch cycle. So we know it Earth revolves around the sun, and this today we have an elliptical path in the horizontal way. At some point of time in the past, in the geological past, we have had the revolution of the Earth in the circular manner. So it changes with the time. So when the Earth is at the position where it receives the most sunlight, so we have a different climatic condition, and when it is farther from the sun, we have different climatic regime. So coming to the human activities, yeah, we know we are, I mean, this air pollution, we are polluting this, we can see in the photograph, yeah, vehicular emission, carbon dioxide, coal, deforestation, and a number of causes which is already being covered by our previous speakers. So I would not take much time here. So what we can do here, I mean, these are some of the basic things we need to as a human being, we need to follow this, we need to adopt this, we need to follow it with all the discipline, because we know the I mean, single drops of water, if we collect from everyone, it would be capable enough to fill a pond or lake. So we can follow these things. We should not waste electricity. As my friend said, we can come to the office by bicycle or by not by the car every time, or we can do odd even things like that. These are the some of the things we can do on our personal level. So if we wanna see the change in others, we need to start from ourselves, our home, from our institute. So these were the some of the basic things what we can do to curtail the global warming. So here comes the role how a paleosciences is being helpful in curtailing the climate change or the global warming. So we know that India is an agrarian economy where almost 70% of the people rely on the agriculture for their livelihood, and agriculture is related with the agriculture needs the irrigation, and the water for the irrigation is being supplied by the Indian summer monsoons. So we know that 80% of the agricultural irrigation water to the agricultural lands of the Indian subcontinent are from the Indian summer monsoon. And what factors, then the question comes, what factors governs the Indian summer monsoon? Indian summer monsoon being governed by the southwestern trade winds, we know that, and the southwestern trade winds brings lot of moisture from the Arabian Sea to the Indian subcontinent. So basically, what happens? Why this wind flows from one place to another? It's just because of the pressure belt which is being created. Why this pressure belt is being created? Just because of the differential heating of the land and the ocean. And how this differential heating is happening is just because of the solar insolation. So we see that how the sun is impacting the Indian summer monsoon, and how this Indian summer monsoon changes the climatic pattern, and how it's gonna impact the human beings. So to decipher this, we do a lot of reconstruction of the paleoclimatic studies that would be taken forward by the Prachitas.
Monsoon has a tendency of its notorious variability on centennial and decadal timescales. So we as an institution, what we do is we try to reconstruct that monsoon using different proxies. And these monsoon reconstructions from the past will help us in creating the models for future. The models will not only help in understanding the variability of the climate, but also will help in establishing adaptive strategies. To model the climate of the future, relatively long-term historical and ancient monsoon data is required. BSIP scientists are working hard to develop a paleo approach to forecast future monsoons using data from past records. Furthermore, BSIP scientists are conducting cutting-edge research on the interactions between biotic and abiotic factors in various ecosystems, as well as effects of anthropogenic stress on regional and global climate change. The overarching goal of such studies is to make a society that is aware and resilient to climate change. Further, the Institute has also delved into climate perception studies through climate-dependent variables, especially in difficult terrains like Himalayas. In Himalayas, what happens is, in a very small spatial gradient, the temperature and the climate vary drastically. So, and it is not always feasible to install these meteorological stations on such difficult terrains. So what we do is sometimes to understand the temperature and precipitation at a local scale, we are using climate perception studies, that is taking the opinions from the locals and from the indigenous people, harnessing their knowledge and filling the gaps in this meteorological data. The Himalayan ecosystem has been reported to be the worst damaged by the climate change, and the populations living in such regions are more vulnerable to its effects. It has been reported that the Himalayas, compared to the Indian subcontinent, the Himalayas have suffered a more drastic increase in the climate change. About 1.5 degrees Celsius, the climate has warmed. So the perception studies that we have done, the results of that show that the climate change, the people's perception of climate change correlate well with the scientific data, and its impact shows negative consequences on the local environment and traditional lifestyles. By these perception studies, we also were able to understand the different adaptive strategies of different people. For example, my work is on Sikkim, so I went to Sikkim, I spoke with the people, I interacted with them, and I saw that how they are sort of responding and adapting to climate change. So the people there are extremely aware of climate change, and they have banned plastic bottles, they put fines, they are very aware. They have bamboo bottles these days now. I went to Lachin and Lachung and saw bamboo bottles being sold in the shops for the tourists so that they don't bring their bottles and destroy the ecosystem. Apart from that, there is a sort of a controlled tourism because Sikkim, am I audible? Yeah. Sikkim is a tourist hotspot, so they are trying to minimize the tourism as well, because tourism, even though it is increasing the economy, it is really having harmful effects on the climate and the whole ecosystem. Thank you. Any questions? I would answer. Yes, please. Yeah, please.
We can rely on the renewable energy resources in order to reduce the emission of the harmful gases to counter the global warming. For instance, I would like to tell you one case study. When we were in MSc time in BHU, we saw that in every hostels, in the terrace of every hostels, this large solar panels are being installed in order to increase the self-reliance of the whole university. So we can adopt this kind of approach. And although the various government schemes are there where government is providing a lot of subsidies, so you can install the solar panel at your house up to 5 kV, which is capable enough of running ACs and all the laser stuffs. So we can rely on the renewable energy resources like solar panel. We can afford it, and I won't suggest thermal or either geothermal thing we can afford as a human being or as a layman. So yeah, by adopting these things, we can definitely reduce the impact of global warming.
Thank you, Shirish and Prachita. So I would like to express.
Yeah, wait.
Okay. There is another question.
All right.
I studied geography, and I learned that Indian weather is controlled by two places. One is Mediterranean Sea, and second is
Yeah, that's. Yeah. I said na ki pressure gradient, which plays a very important role. So when this southwestern trade wind comes na, Tibetan plateau has a very high pressure, and this Indian subcontinent has low pressure. So those southwestern trade wind, which moves right from the equator just because of the Coriolis force, it goes towards the Indian monsoon. If that pressure in the Tibetan plateau would not be there, we would not be having the southwestern trade wind, and we would not be having the Indian summer monsoon. Yeah. No. we are majorly focusing on the northwestern Himalaya part, Trans Himalaya. We go up to the Kargil, and here towards the northeastern side, we cover entire central India, Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. We work there, or we goes up to the Sikkim Himalayas, towards basically the Indian parts of the Himalayas.
Yes, sir. Second, if I recall, the Tropic of Cancer actually.
Yeah.
So when monsoon actually bends, that is Tropic of Cancer bends west, right?
Yeah, it goes towards north. Basically, you are talking about the ITCZ zone, which is being formed at the equator. When I am telling you now, when it's what I know, what I can understand from your question, when it's the Indian summer monsoon time, it pushes slightly towards the north.
Right.
Yes.
So the question is, why this bending happens?
Okay.
The monsoon will turn by around 30 degrees or so.
Just because of Coriolis force. I mean, Coriolis force, it's a force when the winds moves from equator towards north pole. Just because of the Coriolis force, the winds move towards right, and in the southern hemisphere, winds move towards the left. So that's why it's bent towards the Indian summer, Indian subcontinent.
There is no impact of climate change on this kind of movement.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah.
Because such kind of bends in waves have not been seen in other parts of the world.
No. It's a uniform, sir. It's uniform. It's everywhere. Wherever wind from equator moves towards the North Pole, it bends towards the right. It's just because of the Coriolis force. And in the southern hemisphere, it moves towards the left just because of the Coriolis force.
Okay, thank you, Shirish and Prachita. I would like to
so
express my thanks to all of you who have presented today for their valuable contribution to the INSA symposium. So, Rajendra, up to you.
What do you do for better climate? That is the right question we should be asking, and we must ask it at least today. What do we do? So I'll just quote one or two small examples, just 2 minutes. Say we see in our neighborhood, what people do is they open their water pipes and they're simply watering the tarmac or the concrete in front of their houses. Why? Just because I have access to this water, nobody is there to ask me and they do not bill me. No, I am free. Then in the morning, you would see somebody taking out car and then washing it, drenching it properly. You can just do it with half a bucket of water by taking a cloth. You can clean your car very well. No, it is my car. I have to clean it thoroughly. I should use as much water as I can. And with regard to light, as Sasidhar was asking, what we can do. So in the laboratory and in office, we should try to switch off the lights whenever they are not in use. We should switch them off. Like I see here, I remember I was taking exercise in our gymnasium at CDRI. 2 girls came who never came to the gym. They came and they switched on all the lights. I just went on and asked them, please tell me, what do you want to see? What is there in gym to see? There is enough light here, or you can open the door. So we do not apply these things. What are we achieving by doing all that? But anyway, by doing what we did today, we achieved a lot. And we have made it a point that Lucknowites are doing their best. In fact, they have done their best towards sustainable development by making this symposium a success. We talked about health and well-being, water and sanitation, preserving biodiversity, economic growth, and for better climate and avoiding global warming. Thank you. Thanks a lot, particularly to the budding scientists. This has not only helped us in achieving what we have achieved today, but will also add to your skills for the future. And thank you all the participants for sparing your day out of your busy schedule. And thank you very much. I would like to call upon Dr. Saman Habib for felicitating and encouraging our young scientists.
Thank you, Rajendra, for coordinating this session so wonderfully. I'm really grateful to all the young participants, research scholars who came from our sister brother research institutes in the city. I think it's the first time I've seen BSIP students in this institute. So welcome, guys. We are not restricted to CSIR. DST labs are also welcome. So I would like to acknowledge your participation by just giving out participation certificates. These are not certificates that mean anything, but we just like to acknowledge the fact that you participated so wholeheartedly and made an effort to make such wonderful presentations to us today. So Anuradha and Tuba from CDRI first. Please come up, followed by Anuradha and Deepshi. Give them a big hand, guys. Anuradha Seth and Tuba Kamal. Right? Then we have Anuradha Singh and Deepshi Chaurasia from IITR. Rudra Banerjee and Sanchita Singh from NBRI. Vidushi Tyagi and Nikki Deepa from CMAP. And from CDRI, Akanksha Singh and Shashidhar Kolur. And Prachita Arora and Shirish Varma from BSIP. Thank you everyone for being here, but don't leave without a cup of tea outside. So there's some tea waiting for you. Join us there. And I would like to end by thanking everybody who found time to come for this symposium. We are all going back after having learned at least something that was new to us. And I hope this whole discussion on climate change and sustainable goals will leave an impact on our minds, and we'll be careful about things we do and the kind of work we do also in the future as scientists. I would also like to end by thanking our audiovisual team. Thank you very much, Arvind and team, for taking care of everything so beautifully. Thank you all.